Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasati
Hare Krishna. Welcome back. We are reading Bhagavad-gita, second chapter, and we are getting a very structured and detailed understanding of the spirit soul, which is the beginning, which is the basis for the rest of the Bhagavad-gita as it unfolds. And in the we're reading Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And therefore we also we get a little extra also. We don't just study the basics, we get some relevant expansion of that knowledge. I will read the Sanskrit to the text 13 of the second chapter, and I don't know your level of studying, because Bhagavad-gita is, of course, you can read it because it's lovely and poetic, you can read it because it's interesting, you can read it, and that's of course what I would recommend, to put it into practice for your own spiritual life. And you can also study it methodically. And if you do, this 2.13 is one of those verses that is one of the building blocks, the basics that you may want to learn by heart, if that is your inclination. That's one of those verses. Text 13. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumarang yauvanang jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body at every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo changes. Any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body accounts for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So, in either case, there was no cause for lamentation. Yes. So Bhagavad-gita, we're reading it, of course, we can read it on two levels. It is actually spoken, it actually happened 5,000 years ago. This war was taking place, and Arjuna's concerns were for his teachers and family and so on. And here Krishna is, relieving him of that source of anxiety by pointing out that his teachers, who are good souls, who are living a dharmic life that will produce either a spiritual continuation in the next life, or at the very least a material elevation to a heavenly situation in the heavenly planets. That is one level to read it, and that's definitely that one level it is spoken. It's also spoken in general for all of us. The embodied soul passes from childhood to youth to old age. We can observe this. This is not a question of faith or belief or religion or culture. This is a fact right in front of our eyes. But unless we hear Krishna's words pointing it out in this way, we may not connect it to our spiritual existence. And also, I want to mention that this does not mean that we go around and kill people. In general, we never kill anybody. I mean, up to the point we don't even Hare Krishna, we don't even kill animals for food because they are living and we are living and we want to give them the opportunity to continue living. But this war is based on creating a situation, a dharmic situation, where everybody involved will have the opportunity to continue to support a society that is functional and good in that sense, but also gives the opportunity for spiritual life. So this is an exception. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. So that's a real dhira. When we change the body, this is a big change. Even small changes are very painful if we want to move from one country to another, when we go from one school to another, or apply for a new job, or all the situation, they are unsure and confusing. And even if we know we are going to the next step, that it's a good thing, it's a little bit difficult because we don't know. So going from one body to the next, a much bigger change, and we really don't know. But when we learn, when we understand from the Vedas, and especially the Bhagavad-gita, because Bhagavad-gita is short and concise and, how to say, it's written in such a way that it's accessible to understand it, then a person who actually has realized this knowledge, understanding his spiritual nature, the change of body is not such a big change, because he's situated. Dhira means you're situated in your realized individual personality. The Mayavad theory of oneness, and that situation, that ability to be a dhira, is one of the benefits of studying the Bhagavad-gita and applying its knowledge in our life. We can actually be elevated from all our worries and frustrations and limitations in life, not by escaping them, but by going deeper to the actual core and realizing our actual spiritual nature. So that's where we can be headed on this path. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the supreme souls being unchangeable. So this we will read further verse by verse, the definition of the soul, the description and analysis of the spirit soul. That's one of them. The soul cannot be changed, cannot be cut. So that applies, of course, also to the thinking that if we are one homogeneous spiritual energy, how come we are individuals now? Have we been cut into little pieces? It's actually quite an absurd thought when you think about it, and therefore we put it here. Prabhupada puts it here, so we think about it. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental position of the Supreme exists eternally. The fragmental portions of the Supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called kshara. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. Yes. So it may sound a little bit, how to say, oh, we were thinking that we were going to be eternally one huge, all-pervading spiritual nature, and now we get to hear that we're fragmental parts. But being fragmental parts means we retain our individuality, and in our situation in the spiritual world, in Krishna's company, we are also able to have a relationship to Krishna. Because if we are not individuals, we cannot have a relationship. And that's what we want. We want to be in that relationship with Krishna eternally. The theory of reflection can be applied to the supersoul who is present in each and every individual body and is known as Paramatma. He's different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. Reflection theory. One way to understand it is that we are actually not of this material world. It just looks like that. It's like when you have, after rainfall, you can have little puddles on the road, and you look in them and you see the sun in each of them. And you know the sun is actually in the sky. The sun is not in any of the puddles, and especially not in each and every one of them. But it looks that way. So with us, it looks like we're in this material body, but we're reflected from the spiritual Brahman existence. And Supersoul follows us in our hearts. But he's not conditioned. He doesn't enter the material world as such. He retains his spiritual position, but out of his kindness, he comes with us from body to body, in our hearts, in each and every living entity, every human being, every straw of grass, every ant. Supersoul is seated on that, side by side with a living entity, and he's coordinating this whole existence, because we learn from the Bhagavad-gita, we learn about karma, we learn about reincarnation, we learn that existence is, is held together by these laws of nature, more subtle laws of nature, like the law of karma. But how does it actually work? It works because Supersoul is there, and he's making it work. It's not a mechanical law. It's a law that works under Supersoul's supervision. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by illusory energy, Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless, because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity, Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. So it sounds maybe a little bit harsh to say Krishna is superior, and then the other person is a forgetful soul. But it is a great source of hopefulness. We may be small, fragmental, illusioned, deluded by Maya, but Krishna is there, and he's none of those things, and he's always able to impart that knowledge unto us. He's always able to lift us up when we turn to him. And then when we study the Bhagavad-gita and we start to consciously turn to Krishna, I think many of us turn to Krishna in an instinctual way, in an intuitive way. We're looking for that greater person. We're looking for God. We find in our heart a prayer for meaning of life, for direction, and so on. And Krishna responds to that. Supersoul responds to that. But when we study the Bhagavad-gita systematically, and we consciously try to establish our relationship with Krishna again, how much more he turns to us, how much more he helps us and lifts us up. And that's what he's doing with Arjuna. Arjuna turns to him as a surrendered student to his teacher, and Krishna accepts that responsibility, and Krishna will give him every facility to access this knowledge and to practice this knowledge and to realize this knowledge. So that's how the Bhagavad-gita is built up. We start with the 2nd chapter describing the soul, and here Prabhupada is already referring to the 4th chapter, where we hear about the Supreme. Because hearing about the soul is a very important step to distinguish between matter and spirit. The next very important step is to distinguish between us, the small individual souls, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this way, we have this knowledge, and we have Krishna's, ability to assist us when we are accessing this knowledge and put it into practice in our lives. So that's our Bhagavad-gita. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalang